am doing pretty well. I got some new weed recently when I went to the store.
New weed? Is that time for that part of the episode? That was quick. We're only 15 seconds in. We got new weed,
Well, I
folks.
mean, I have to smoke. This is the whole point is Drunk Thoughts and High Opinions. I have to smoke. So I got some new weed. Look at the size of that fucking thing.
Why does that nug look like the shape of Africa?
You know, it kind of does. That's weird. But it is it's some real good weed. It's called all-purpose flower.
Flower or Flour?
OW.
Okay, so like flower, like a bouquet of flowers.
Yeah,
not flowers and like pizza flour.
As in, we usually refer to buds as flower when it comes to marijuana.
You know, man, I never assume shit when it comes to the naming conventions of marijuana.
That's fair, but I think that you can be safe in just assuming that it's flower like a nice rose.
Is it safe?
Oh, it's safe.
Is it safe?
Oh, it's safe.
Is it safe?
Oh, it's safe, my dude.
Is it safe? You never saw the Clerks cartoons, did you?
I did dabble. I did watch them, you know, back when I was really, really into Kevin, right when I first discovered him. I was consuming everything I could find. And
but you didn't watch him enough to remember that scene.
No.
Okay.
The funny thing is I did watch them like 3 times.
How high were you each time?
Very.
Fair.
That is
it's like the opening. I think it might have been even the first episode's like opener. Well, they aired them out of order, but if you watch them in order, the first scene is a dude just walks into the quick stop and he's like, "Hello, is anybody here? Are you guys open?" And all you hear is Randall, "Is it safe?" over like an intercom. He goes, "Yeah, it's safe. It's really safe." "Is it safe?" "It's really safe. Guys, I just want to buy some smokes, man." "Is it safe?" And that repeats for like a good 3 minutes until the guy breaks down at the counter. Is like, "I just want some smokes," and then runs out of the building and then spontaneously combusts into fire. What?
Yep.
Yeah.
That sounds like some Kevin Smith shit.
Yes.
I just watched the movie with my lady friend last night for Valentine's Day. They Came Together. I think, have we talked about this movie before on the channel?
No, I don't believe so.
It is a David Wayne film. It is the film that came out right before they returned to Wet Hot American Summer for the TV series.
Gotcha.
It is starring Paul Rudd and Amy Poehler. And it is basically a spoof of romantic comedies. Most scenes from classic romantic comedies show up in this in some form or another, being made fun of. And it's just a silly, funny comedy. And it has one of my favorite scenes, maybe in the cinema history, where Paul Rudd is having a rough night. He goes into a bar and he has 2 shot glasses in front of him. The bartender pours him some glasses and he says, "You having a rough night?" And he goes, "You tell me about it." He goes, "Well, you came in here looking like crap and you haven't said much." He goes, "You can say that again." He goes, "Well, you came in here looking like crap and you haven't said very much." And he goes, "Yeah, tell me about it." And then it repeats like that for maybe 55 seconds before finally it cuts back to the premise of them telling the story to their friends. And Bill Hader's like, "Okay, we get it."
Fair.
It's a 55-second clip of just the constant back and forth. Tell me about it. "Well, you came in
I'll
here
watch
looking
Paul
like
Rudd do
crap
anything
and
for 55 seconds.
And it's just the same 2 looks of just
They just played it over and over and over. They just repeated the same footage.
Yeah,
it's like we need an extra minute of footage just for whatever reason. Let's just loop this scene.
And it is my favorite scene in cinema history.
That says so much about your taste that I'm not even going to deep dive into that can of worms. All-purpose flower. Tell me about this new weed. We got to talk about your new weed.
It's a sativa.
Well, first, I'm sorry. I'm going to cut you off for 1 second.
All right.
Why don't we introduce the show?
Do we really need to introduce the show at this point?
I
Like,
think
people,
we do. You
if
never
people
know
are
when we're going to
listening
get the
to
fourth listener. You never know when that fourth person's going to show. We got our constant 3, but just like you, maybe one of them finds love and they bring him into the fold. So introduce yourself.
I am Graham. I am your high opinions and your mad musings. I am here to discuss things on a socioeconomical level.
What? None of that. Well, the first 2/3 are true, but this is the last third kind of went off the rails a little bit there.
What about you, Corey?
Welcome.
What can you tell people about yourself?
Well, spoilers. You just told them my name. Jeez.
You called me Graham, so I mean...
I know. I'm just a dick. I am Corey Rokes. I am your drunken, dastardly dude on this episode and this week's episode of Drunk Thoughts and High Opinions. So Graham's going to smoke a big old hit of that, which I realized last week while I was playing with your levels, I went a little too high, and that bubbling comes through like super hot on the speakers. So next time, I'm going to ask you to kind of lean away from the microphone.
Oh, I've been leaning.
Because otherwise, it's like... You're like blowjobbing the microphone with that bong.
Yes.
Like going balls deep on it. So, all right.
Yes.
Now, all-purpose flower. Tell us about this weed.
Well, it's a sativa. And it was the cheapest thing I could get at 28 grams. But I did not expect the cheapest weed to be that fucking good. You can already see it in my eyes. I'm already affected by this. I am... blown away by this. It's so moist. Like, you know a weed is good when it's moist.
Moist.
Like, do you know this, Corey? Your years of experience smoking weed prior to going green clean, so to speak. Would you say that is true? That the danker, the more moist weed usually hits the hardest?
The clean green loving machine, that's me. No, well, maybe. I never smoked enough to really make a full distinction on that front. And for me, a lot of weed was very dry. Like, I have a hard time smoking weed with my asthma.
Of course.
So like all weed just kind of hurts. When it's smoked, which is why I enjoy the edibles personally. But you know, and I can usually pick up on different flavors, but I never paid attention to the moistness of a good herb. So maybe.
Well, you've noticed perchance when you have rolled a joint or filled a bowl at your old frat house that when sometimes weed has been sitting out for a long time, it gets drier and, you know, more powdery.
That's most plants.
Most plants, yes. Whereas
Exhibit A would be this dying spider fern behind me.
Yes. And some weed even is ground up like that. You just grind it and immediately turns into a powder. It's just naturally dry. Doesn't hold any moistness. But then there are some where, and when I say moistness, I mean, I'm referring to the fact that when you touch it, your hands become sticky. There gets that little tiny bit of resin on it. There's like a coating over it. Like there is still that moisture in it that is producing
like eating Cheetos.
The stickiness. Exactly. Like you're gonna get you're not eating Cheetos right if you don't have fucking orange fingers. And the same thing.
You're not
with
smoking weed right unless you got green fingers.
Well,
is that what you're trying to say?
You're not smoking good weed if you don't have green fingers. if you're not like kind of like playing with your fingers afterwards going like, there's a lot of stickiness on there.
Why do I feel like you're like the kind of guy that's just like licking his fingers like one does after KFC?
No, I do not do that.
Maybe you should start.
Maybe I should start. Who knows? We'll see.
All right.
Corey, you apparently have a great beer to share with us today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I was trying to find a better segue into it because I am drinking, and don't get too excited until I finish, but it is called Big Doinks.
Big Doinks?
Big Doinks.
Hunker down for doinkage.
Extra dank India Pale Ale, 6.5 ABV.
Ah.
And the description. a love letter to our favorite West Coast IPAs. Sticky, resinous, bitter, maximally dank, and crisp. Notes of citrus rind, pine trees, and ... other stuff. Now, this is a pure alcoholic
I'd like
drink.
to
It's
highlight
not one of the
other stuff. I'd like to put a magnifying glass on other stuff and talk about
I'm sure
that.
you would. But yeah, this is sadly it is only an alcoholic beverage. It's not one of the THC beverages that are becoming commonly available in Minneapolis. I do intend to pick some of those up, and we're going to do a little role reversal on a Drunk Thoughts and High Opinions at some point, where I will be the High Opinions and you will be the Drunk Thoughts.
I think that sounds like
because I'm getting sick of these fucking hangovers. But I thought this would be a good middle ground of everything, where it's a nice, it's a beer inspired by weed. I mean, talk about an ultimate, like, this is the beer of Drunk Thoughts and High Opinions, and it's brewed right here in Minneapolis by the Fair State Brewing Cooperative. So let's crack on, shall we?
Crack on. Shall I smoke another bowl while you go at it?
You shall smoke another bowl while I pour this Big Doinks, brought to you by Drunk Thoughts and High Opinions.
And while we do that, Corey, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, head always becomes beer. Nothing wrong with a little head. Nothing wrong with a lot of head, because it always turns into beer. But Corey,
before we jump into it today, speaking of which, before we jump into topics, how was your Valentine's Day?
My Valentine's Day was lovely, because my lovely girlfriend was down in the States and we were not able to be together. We instead decided to cook the same meal so we could pretend that we were together and then watch a movie together. So I think it ended up working out. This is the sort of things that we learned to do during COVID, and then it just passes on into, the future. So yeah, I had a lovely Valentine's Day. Not really much to say beyond that. Corey, how was yours?
Mine was fan-fucking-tastic. Well, let me context this while you're smoking your bowl. Valentine's Day, in and of itself, was pretty standard Tuesday for me. Not really much to go on. The day at work was good. Went to band, that was good. And then I FaceTimed my girlfriend Hannah for about an hour, and that was nice. What we did was I went to visit her this past weekend. And we did a pre-Valentine's because we knew we wouldn't be there. We wouldn't be together on the day, with it falling on a Tuesday. We knew that we wouldn't be able to spend the day together. So we did this past Saturday. We went a wonderful dinner date up to Green Bay to a restaurant called Angelina's. She had a great ribeye steak. Probably one of the best ribeyes I've ever tasted. This thing was fucking awesome.
Sounds good.
It was
I love
amazing.
a good steak.
It was their special, and the waiter, the great waitress, told us about it. Shout out to Nicole, and it sounded so good that Hannah and I looked at each other. It's like, okay, one of us is ordering that, and so Hannah ordered that. And it was with a side of baked gnocchi, super good, and I ordered a roasted chicken with cheese stuffed tortellini, Alfredo. Yeah, so we had some really good fucking meals, some nice drinks. I mean, this was a fancy joint, and we got dressed up. I had a shirt and tie on. She had a wonderful blue new dress that she got from White House Black Market. We went full on fancy, and man, chef's kiss, man. It was a wonderful dinner date. So there was that. And then Sunday was our 6-month anniversary of dating, or what we've agreed upon as being our start date of dating, because there was really no official when did it switch. We just kind of grew into it.
Sure.
That happens. It just kind of blossomed, and that's one of the things I consider to be very special about the relationship is it wasn't we met with the intention of dating, or it just was we're really enjoying each other. We're enjoying spending time with each other. Let's keep it moving. Let's keep the momentum going and move on to the next step. And so, but looking back, we kind of pinpointed a date. And so this past Sunday was the 6-month anniversary of that date. So we celebrated that, so to speak. And
very nice.
Very nice. It was such a wonderful weekend. I mean, this girl is so fantastic. I can't wait to spend more time with her. So very soon. So
Yeah.
She got me. I'll have to send you a picture of it off air. A, a brass compass from Etsy, and when you open up, there's a personalized inscription about like, I don't know what to expect with all of our adventures, or but I do know that as long as I'm with you, it's going to be a good time. Something like that.
Aw, very, very cute.
Very adorable. It was a wonderful thing. I got her. She's been looking to get a smartwatch for a while, like a Fitbit type thing. So I bought her that a couple weeks ago because she was about to buy one herself. And I'm like, no, I was going to get you one for Valentine's, and so bought it for her a couple weeks early. And then I sent her, but I did send her flowers yesterday. So she was at work, and without her knowledge, guy showed up and gave her a big old bouquet, which she really appreciated. So
yeah,
it was a wonderful Valentine's, to say the least.
I guess I did. I did technically kind of forget to mention that because Morgan and I are long distance. We celebrated Valentine's Day a little early, but then because it was the day, we decided to do something anyway. But we did do something back at the beginning of the month when she was visiting.
That's good.
Yeah,
I like that idea of cooking the same meal and watching the movie together. Like that's nice. That's a good
and it was
good way to do it.
It was a nice breakfast hash for dinner. Nothing like a good breakfast hash for dinner.
You did
then
Brenner?
Put into burritos. A Brenner, yeah.
Brenner is the best.
Brenner. I did a Brenner.
No, you gotta watch Scrubs. Brenner is like a huge thing, and it's amazing. Yeah. So Brenner, breakfast for dinner, fantastic, love it.
I've done that for years. I love it. It
is such a good thing, but doing it as a date, even better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is, but it's just amazing. Like it just has that magic. It's sinfully delicious.
Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into this week's topic.
I was thinking the same thing.
MinMax, which is a wonderful Minnesota-based company, video game reporting news company by Patreon. It's helmed by a bunch of former Game Informer associates, including a gentleman named Ben Hansen, who used to do one of their podcasts and stuff. Wonderful individual. I love to listen to his podcast because he's such a wonderful video game nerd and journalist. He and a bunch of guys founded this MinMax, and they recently sat down and did an interview with the developers of God of War Ragnarok. And I think we should talk about that and finally break into our thoughts and opinions on Ragnarok. What do you say?
I say we go for it.
So there was a couple of bits of information. A couple of bits. Jeez, way to fucking fuck that up. God damn it.
Well, there was a pause. You didn't say anything. I was like, well.
I was sipping my beverage. Thank you.
So what did they have to say?
Let me do my show, for Christ's sakes.
It's our show.
It is our show.
You monster.
It's a Elton John or who's the other dude? Billy Joel. That's the one. It's a Billy Joel quote. Let me do my show, for Christ's sakes.
Yes.
Anyway, so they talked to the developers. There's a couple of cool bits of information that came out of the interview. First one that I thought was very interesting is, where did that go? What is it? They didn't realize that the hints were so fucking annoying. Did you hear about that? Like, I think you and I may have talked about it a little bit, but like the fact that if you sit there and look at a puzzle for more than 5 seconds, the entire game starts yelling at you.
Yes.
So
how
are your feelings on that?
Well, I immediately turned that setting down.
After they updated the patch, because initially it didn't have that. Right.
The moment that they had an option to like pace the clues, I
tell people to shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I was fine with the clues. I just needed it to happen less often. I needed it to happen every 2 minutes instead of every 10 seconds. So once I had that going, I was like, this is much better. I think it was like 50 seconds per, and I was like, I'm fine with that. I'll take it. Okay. And I figured out the puzzles quickly enough most of the time that they honestly weren't bothering me about it. So that was nice. There was only a few puzzles where I was just like, good God, I can't figure this out. And so I would hear them say it maybe like 20 or 30 times because it was, you know,
Yeah,
taking me like
they have
20
like
minutes.
the same 3 hints.
Yeah.
And they're like, people, shut the fuck up.
Shut the fuck up. Yeah.
Do you find that's
was
a
quite
trend in a
annoying.
lot of new games? Because like Forbidden West also does this way more than Zero Dawn did.
This is my problem with the what most people are considering the AAA titles, you know, the big games, the ones that should be winning awards, these really like epic storytelling games.
Well, that is a AAA title.
Like, no.
By definition.
Like, no, it is. The people that are like getting really excited about these specific AAA titles because of their storytelling and their you know graphics and stuff like that. They all like follow this weird trend that was started in The Last of Us and Uncharted. Unfortunately, I love them, but they started the trend of like, you know, you're doing a game that has little minor puzzles and you have to like get through them, and if you don't get them immediately, the person that you're with is immediately going to be like, hey, why don't you try this? Hey, why don't you try this? Hey, why don't you try this? And
I would argue that started back in Ocarina of Time. Hey, listen.
Very, very fair. In terms of that's actually a really good point. It did start with Ocarina of Time. Hey, listen. But
shut the fuck up, Navi.
In my opinion, for at least voice acting, besides the hey, listen, like besides that, the it really like became a big thing, especially in AAA games with Uncharted and The Last of Us. And as we all know, God of War.
That is a heady beer.
2018. That is a heady beer. The God of War 2018 was heavily inspired by the success of The Last of Us, going for like the kind of success of having a parent and child dynamic being in a kind of harshly conditioned world. And so like that was heavily inspired, and they took lots of things from The Last of Us, and one of the things they took was lots of clues given by the person that's following you all the time, or people. And it's fine because especially for like accessibility, it makes it easier for people who are like, I just want to like play through a story and not have to really worry about challenges. People who play games on the lowest difficulty.
Heathens.
But I'm somebody who loved Elden Ring, a game that literally does not tell you anything.
Yeah, you're a fucking sadist. Nobody gives a shit about your opinion. Like, you like punishment.
But there's something so relaxing about nobody telling you what to do, and you just like, because when you're following your character who's constantly telling you what you should be doing, then you're like, oh god, I have to go do that. I have to go do that again. When you're just playing Elden Ring or games like that, you're just like, hey, nobody's telling me what to do. Nobody's like showing me where to go. I'm just going to go in a direction and I'm going to explore, and I'm definitely going to find something. And that was the beauty of Elden Ring, was you always found something when you went in a direction.
Yeah, but that's a personal opinion. That's you and your play style. That's not a fact. That's an opinion.
That's fair. That's
all
fair.
Right, you're keeping it to the high opinions there. That's your job.
Force an anxiety on you of like, oh, I have to take care of everything.
No, because some people, like for instance myself, where you're just, you know, sometimes that's overload. Like I don't play games like Skyrim because that's exactly what the game does to you. It says pick a direction and you're gonna have a good time. Is what we want you to do, but I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and that causes more anxiety. So it's a personal thing to enjoy that. It's not universal.
That's fair. But
some people like a little direction, Graham. Some people like a little
do it a little too much, as you were pointing out.
And that's what we're discussing is the depth of which they do it. Whether or not they do it is a whole.
What these games need to do is take a note from Elden Ring and then combine it with what they're doing. You know,
it's a happy medium they need to find.
Exactly. They need to respond, not like fully flip it in the opposite direction, but they need to find the thing that worked with Elden Ring and apply it to their own games. And the thing that worked about Elden Ring was that the game felt fully immersive. You could go anywhere and do anything from any level, and it was
And
a
it's not just
fully
Elden
open
Ring.
world game.
I
Well, it's
mean,
not
I
just
would
Elden
replay
Ring,
Breath
but
of the
like
Wild, and that game kind of does the same thing.
Breath of the Wild is a good example as well. I'm just using Elden Ring because that's the thing that's fresh in my mind. We're about to get come up on its 1-year anniversary. We're about to get a DLC announcement.
It's like a year old.
This
Get
is
with the times, old man.
This is the game. This is still the talk of the town. This is still a very active game
in your world.
It's still a very, very popular game. It's still one of the best-selling games out there. I
call me when the DLC drops.
Okay, well, the DLC is probably getting announced in 10 days on its 1-year anniversary. So
we shall see. But we're not here to talk about Elden Ring. We're here to talk about God of War.
Well, I think that the next game could take a little bit of a clue by making the game more open world. And
even more open world. Okay.
More open world. And making it less hand-holdy.
And they did a good job. Once they implemented that patch, I think that kind of solved a lot of issues.
It did, but what I'm talking about is for an open world game, its paths are on rails, so to speak. At least not as much as the first game, but there are definitely in instances like you can only do a few things. Then like every map you could go to in Ragnarok obviously had its open world aspect. The elves world had its big open snow map, and the dwarves had
sand,
the what?
Sand in Vanna? You're talking about
the sand that was covered.
It was like a
in,
desert.
Yeah, desert.
It kind of felt like a Metroidvania. Almost. The open world was sort of Metroidvania in the sense that like you had I liked this the one of the beefs I had with Ragnarok, because I agree with you in the sense that like it's nice to be able to explore, but like Ragnarok, as I played through it, it felt like a game that was only worth exploring when you got to the end. Versus the first one, the 2018 one, yeah, there was a couple of things locked behind, like, oh, you need this weapon or this maneuver to do this. But the game kind of like halfway through gives you pretty much everything. And then the second half of the game, you can do whatever you want. I remember I did like all the side quests before I went and beat the game. Mm-hmm. Versus Ragnarok was like, you need to be basically at the end of the game, at the Ragnarok level, like after you've triggered Ragnarok almost. And then you can go explore, or even the post game where it's like, okay, you've beaten the game, now go do the side stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like you kind of needed to have everything to do everything. They really locked everything behind all the unlock, the weapons and the maneuvers, getting the. And we're going to drop into spoilers here, folks. So if you haven't played the game, fuck you. Getting the drop near spear to create new paths and shit like that. You kind of like, it didn't promote a lot of exploring in the game. It was really promoting exploring post game. Does that make sense?
I 100% agree. I kind of felt the same way with the first game, but I will agree that the game did at least encourage more engagement with the side content before the end. This one did kind of like the last 3 or so quests are just kind of like, oh shit, like we're going now, and they did give you places to pause and go do the side content, but it kind of felt like not good timing.
It did feel good timing, and then and even then I ran into like, oh, you need to have the spear. You can blatantly see the marks on the wall of like, oh, I need to come back here with the spear to make this.
Oh, I'm talking about I'm talking about like literally when you've like opened up the forge and shit.
Yeah.
Like they
And
give
even
you
then-
options. They give you options to go off and do the side content at that point. And you're just like, this feels like not good timing. I should come back after I've beaten the game to do the side content. It'll just feel right. And you know, weirdly, I actually, in a way, felt like doing some of the side content was better. Some of it was better in the post game. For example, I did Freya's quest line on I think it's Vanaheim. I did her quest on Vanaheim that gets her sword after the game. I took her when Atreus was not with me, and I don't know how the quest went when Atreus was with us, but I really liked. He's not there when.
No, if you choose to follow that line, he's not with you.
Right. Well, I went after the game was done, and it worked. It was really good. It was like, oh, we've killed him, but even then, it's still not enough. But taking the sword back is kind of like her last redemption. That felt way better doing it after the game. And I felt that way with a lot of other quests as well.
I did that quest like right after you get her as a partner. Mm-hmm. And that was nice only from the sole fact. Like, I agree with you from a narrative standpoint, that probably would make more sense. But it was really nice having that second sword and like some of her special maneuvers later in the game. When she was, you know, again, we became your partner later in the game for a lot of things. I was like, I unlocked that.
I did think about that. I was like, oh, that would have been nice. I forget what she has in that sword, but
I mean, she has a really cool, it's like a hold square cross / attack that does a fair amount of damage. So having that earlier was nifty, not essential, but nifty, I would say. So, okay, and then the let's dive into the story. Actually, you brought up the narrative and how like things kind of fell into the narrative spot of Freya. The other big reveal, so to speak, and I don't know if reveal is the right word, but fuck it, we're going with it because I fucking say so because I'm co-host of the show. Is MinMax and the developers, they talked about how early in the development stage of God of War Ragnarok, one of the original ideas that was pitched was to have Kratos die against Thor in the beginning of the game. So the game opens up, there's a little bit of a tutorial, a little bit of exposition dump, and then boom, you're thrown into a boss fight with Thor, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. It is like one of the best moments in the game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it's so cinematic, so climactic, so just awesome. Because
it's one of the most cinematic fights of all time in a game, at
least. Yeah, it's fantastic. And the developers even toyed with the idea of killing Kratos during that fight, and then the game would jump 20 years into the future, putting Atreus at like 34. So he's a full-fledged adult at this point. And then that's when the story would pick up, and he would have his own little adventure, including digging Kratos out of hell. So, you know, because like let's be honest, at this point, Kratos has died and gone to hell, or some version of it based on the pantheon that he's in, like 5 times. So that man is fucking immortal. And so Kratos, Atreus would have dug him out, and then they would have completed the story.
Yeah.
Opinions on that, Graham?
I think that would have been a better writing choice to kill him. Have us play as Atreus for maybe like what was the story of the game? Probably 20 hours of gameplay.
Yeah, I'd say close to 30.
Thor at about 3 hours in.
No, it was sooner than that. It was probably like 2, maybe 1.
Yeah, so
pretty quick.
If they were to kill off Kratos in the first hour of the game, and then have us play as Atreus for the next 10 hours or so.
10, 15, yeah.
10, 15 hours, and then bring back Kratos and keep his moveset from the first game, but Atreus has adopted a lot of the things that he had in he has gained in this game, like things that Kratos gained, like Dropnire Spear. I think would have been a good the choice to put on Atreus as an adult instead of having Kratos use 3 weapons, because I loved having 3 weapons, but the problem was I only ever really used 2 at a time. And I wanted to be using all 3. It would have been way cooler if I was like, oh, I'm using all 3, but I didn't feel like I had the brain capacity to add a 3rd weapon into the mix of like jumping between them. Yeah, I'm just comboing between like, 2 different ones instead of 3.
What if they had done a thing where you're playing as Atreus, you get the drop near spear, and then just like the midpoint of the first game was getting the Blades of Chaos, the midpoint of this game was getting Kratos out. But you still play as Atreus, but Kratos is your companion. And so you're using the Leviathan axe, switch with the drop near spear, and Kratos just has his Blades of Chaos.
Oh, that's a good idea. Oh, I like that.
And so, like, when you press square, he would have done a special attack with his Blades of Chaos. You know, he would have helped you out in some capacity. Just like when you press square in the game now, it's when he uses a ranged arrow or something like that. Mm-hmm. But he like sticks him with a blade. But in the meantime, he's off on his own doing his own thing, like, you know, as a companion does. Like, they're pretty effective.
Make him like an overpowered companion.
Yeah, just OP, hardcore. Yeah. So that would have been, I think, pretty interesting, or at least a unique dynamic. And then you can do like combos with the Leviathan axe.
Yes, you could do like you throw the axe and shoot an arrow.
Well, you throw the axe and then Kratos like grabs it, picks it up, hacks an enemy in half, and then you summon it back to your hand or something like that. Kind of think. Or
you guys can like you guys are like in sync of like summoning it back and forth or something. Like he'll summon it when you don't want it.
Something like that. What I got pictured in my head is, if you remember the pivotal, well, not the pivotal, but like the climactic fight in Civil War, Captain America Civil War, and both Bucky and Cap are fighting Iron Man, and they're like bouncing the shield between the two of them.
Yes.
Something like that, but with the Leviathan axe.
I think that's good.
That would have been dope.
That would have been very dope. I think it would have been the better writing decision. I think that franchise-wise, this game has been around for a very long time. I think that fans would not have been happy with the choice. People like Kratos. Kratos is a likable character. He's grown a lot.
Surprisingly.
And he's beloved by many people, both toxic and non. And so I think that it would have not gone over wonderfully, especially by the louder part of the internet, if they had gone in that direction.
Way to tiptoe around that one, bud.
So I think what they did was queue up that for the future. They kind of made us comfortable with doing that in the future. This game made me love playing as Atreus. I loved playing as him. His combat system was so simple and unique, and I enjoyed the probably my favorite scenes in the game were like him and Thor going off on their own little adventures, like Thor being drunk as hell and them going to Helheim.
Those were fun, I admit. I was not a huge fan of playing as Atreus, but I did like when Thor was your partner.
Yeah. Thor was just so good in this game. He the actor who played him talked about how he was inspired by Mark Ruffalo's Hulk, and I was like, nah, man, you're inspired by fucking Thanos. Josh Brolin.
I mean, who wouldn't?
The Thor in this game just sounded like Josh Brolin as Thanos.
It did, didn't it? Like, he did have that kind of same gravelly tone.
I had to check several times that they weren't fucking with me on IMDb. I was like, are you sure it's not Josh Brolin? Because it sounds like a heck of a lot like him. Did they just?
It's funny because I played the game and I remember thinking, where have I heard this voice before? It sounds so familiar. And you're right, it did sound like Josh Brolin.
He's just like,
I know what it's like to lose.
Must be.
I know what it's like to lose. The legs turn to jelly. Yeah. Oh, that's so true. That's what it was. It was bugging the fuck out of me.
Yeah.
That was like, I know this voice and this timbre, and I know it wasn't Josh Brolin because I knew it was like an actor I'd never heard of before.
Yeah.
But it does sound like fucking Thanos. You're so right.
It's Thanos.
Oh God.
Thor is Thanos. So that bothered me the entire
Which is
game.
ironic considering if you watch Avengers and like the whole connection between Thor and Thanos is kind of disturbing. So
So
what else did you enjoy about the story? Let's
talk.
talk about the story of the game. Richard Schiff as Odin.
That was perfect casting, in my opinion. Richard Schiff.
That was.
If you've ever seen West Wing, his character in that is just exactly how the Norse mythology describes Odin. Just kind of this like peddlesome man who's always like, I'm gonna I'm gonna work things out with you. I have a deal that I can make with you. If you work for me, I'll work for you. He kind of have like that's how the mythology describes Odin.
I want you to do that again, but I want you to do it in more the New York accent that was being dropped there.
More or less?
More. You had a hint of it. I want all of it.
Okay, so I want
give me all of it, Graham.
We're gonna make a deal here. We're gonna make a deal. So what we're gonna do is, I'm gonna work for you. You're gonna work for me. We're gonna make this happen. Okay. So, how many prostitutes died in your place?
Okay, cut. Let's do it again. But I want you to say me's. I want you to like throw a little Joe Pesci into it. You know what I'm saying? It's like I'm gonna work for you, but you're gonna work for me's, and we're gonna. This is how it's gonna be. You know what I'm saying?
How be? No, I think we're gonna move on and finish this conversation. Asshole.
I'm watching The Good Doctor right now, and Richard Schiff plays the chief. He's the president of the hospital, and but he's also going through his own bullshit with some like a brain tumor, and
he's just a good actor. He's just a
very great actor in the perfect little niche that he does, and I'm glad they kind of. They grounded Odin in this game. Whereas in like Marvel, we got this bombastic Anthony Hopkins big ass like
which
golden
is not
motherfucker.
How the mythology describes him. That's how the comics are, but that's not how.
And that's fine. That's what I'm saying. Like the comics did a great job with him, and I love Anthony Hopkins as Odin. I thought that was great casting for what they were trying to accomplish in those movies. But for the game and how because that's what they've done really good in all the God of War games. Is they've really kept to the mythology, the
actual mythology,
and this Odin does a great job.
Remember in the first 3 games how all the Greek Olympians were fucking awful people? Yeah, because that's how it was in the mythology. If you actually break it down. So they be
douchebags. Zeus was not a good dude.
And so then they go to the Norse mythology, which Norse mythology is more about like the human experience than it is about the gods. Like that's what I loved about the story in this game was that Odin truly had a purpose, and that was that he knew he was going to die, and he wanted to know where he goes, because when humans die, they go to his realm, but what happens to him when he goes? And that bothered him, and I thought that was an amazing existential crisis for the villain to have in this game, and it was a true quest that you are sent on, and you are actually kind of curious about, and you never get the answer to, because we don't know the answer. That's the brilliant thing about
and we'll talk
life.
about the ending shortly.
But I think that giving him that existential crisis made him more than just a villain. He was an anti-hero who was the antagonist. He wasn't a true villain. He was an anti-hero who happened to be the main antagonist.
In the context of what the game shows him as, I would contradict or argue that this stuff and the things he did before the events of the games make him a villain.
True,
like everybody knows that he's a douchebag. Everybody's like, Odin's done this and Odin's done that, and
that's very true.
He is the villain, but his part in the game, and they give him, and how he tries to manipulate Atreus makes it. Yes, I agree with you on that. Makes it uh, rational and understandable. And so they gave him a unique side, and they try to make him not so much likable, but just sympathetic in a sense. But if you take in like, you know, what he did at Freya, what he did to the dwarves in Svartalheim and Nidavellir and all that, it's like, no, this guy's a douchebag.
Yeah.
He's a big old bag of douche. Or what he did to Thor, even too. You know, that's, if anything, if there's any character that I thought they did a really good job making sympathetic, it's Thor.
Thor, absolutely.
Where he, I loved him. You know, he's in the mythology, he's just a bumbling idiot. You know, we you know, everybody who watched the Marvels movie sees this like you know, golden haired god, but in the actual mythology, he's just kind of a dullard. He's kind of he's a real idiot and moron.
In the mythology,
with a hammer with a half a shaft.
He's half giant in the mythology, which they portrayed very well as him just being a chonkus fellow. And just a great big belly, drinks like fucking
and that's totally accurate. Mead.
I loved that. And the thing about this game but like, forget the mythology, forget anything. This game's storytelling was just so good that it literally had me in tears while I was playing the game, while I was fighting.
Well, that's because you're a pussy.
You know. Well, fuck you. But like right from the beginning of the game, I ended the previous game when I was fighting forgetting his name at this point. When you're fighting Thor's son,
Magni and Modi.
No, Baldur. Sorry, that's not Thor's son.
That's not Odin's son. That's Odin's son. That's Thor's brother. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's Odin's son, Thor's brother. Sorry, I thought you said Thor's son.
When you're
I'm like 3 beers in. Fuck you.
I know.
No, you're not sorry. That's me. That's on me. You were right. I'm wrong.
I'll continue. Let me continue. Thank you.
Yeah.
When I was fighting Baldur and Freya is there and she's like screaming for you to stop, like, please don't, don't do it. Like, that gets me choked up because I understand you've had that whole game of context to know why she is so protective. And then when it actually happens, I was like, man, that's crushing. And then begin the second game, you jump in with that exact same like emotional drive. Like, you know, she's already on top of you, she's attacking you, and you're like, oh man, I'm already feeling the tears coming back because I understand why she's so upset.
Not if you're not a pussy.
Well, fuck you. And so I felt like this game consistently kind of kept that like emotional drive up, and the way they did that was through Thor and his daughter, where her relationship to him was she just wanted him to be around. She just needed him to be around. That's a very
Thrud, right?
What?
That was her name? Thrud?
Thrud, yeah. Thrud just needs Thor to be a father and to like try and keep this family together because he's obviously not giving a shit. And that was such a hard thing to watch, as this girl who is like very honest about what she wants and being honest about what she wants to others, but not actually getting that, and you're so frustrated for her. And then when he finally shows just an ounce of change right at the end of the game, Odin is like, oh, well, fuck this noise, get out of here, fat boy, and just fucking like ends his existence. And it's really, really, really sad because it's obviously a God of War game. People are going to die. Gods are going to die. But you kind of were hoping for some character development for Thor. Yeah, some redemption and some, you know.
You know, I have a theory, a thought, a parallel to pitch to you.
All right, go for it.
Thor is Kratos if Kratos had not been abandoned by Zeus. Think about that for a hot minute. Think about that parallel of like, all right, so Kratos who you know, he's Zeus's son, but he doesn't know that for the first umpteenth years of his life.
Good comparison.
And he goes off and he does his own thing, and he becomes an angry douchebag,
Mm-hmm.
and then takes his revenge. But Thor is born under Odin's shadow and constantly tries to appease his father, knowing that really means all his, he has to live up to the name of Odinson and never can obtain it.
Yeah.
And so he spends his entire life trying to get up to that level with, trying to earn his father's approval, just like Atreus too, by the way, if we're looking at parallels, and is just never able to obtain it. So you have one character who embodies almost both of the protagonists in their parallels of trying to be better than their father, to appease their father, to just be their own person, and exist with their family, which is what Kratos has been trying to do since the beginning. I mean, he had a family and he ended up killing them. And so he goes to, Norse mythology and ends up having a family there. And like the whole point of these two games is, how does he become a father? How does he do this? And Thor is also doing that same thing. Mm-hmm. How does he handle having a family, but also while appeasing his father? So they have there's so many parallels one could draw there that makes that character so much more sympathetic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a great comparison. You've said all there is to say. I don't have anything to really add to that. I think that
but I want you to think on that and stew, and you're gonna cry like a little bitch about it later, aren't you?
No.
Okay.
I think that's a good comparison that Kratos is Thor is definitely Kratos if he had not been abandoned by Zeus. I think that's a really good way of putting it, because like Zeus in the Greek mythology is just almighty and like doesn't give a fuck and like fucks whoever he wants.
He gives a lot of fucks. He just doesn't care what he does. He fucks a lot of bitches.
He fucks a lot of bitches. He gives a lot of fucks, but not about what he does. Whereas Odin very much gives a fuck about what he does, and constantly is like, he's like, okay, I'm doing this because I'm going to do this. Like he's constantly justifying to himself. Like we see that throughout the game, that he is
much more methodical.
He's very methodical, and we're probably we're led to understand that everybody else felt that way when they first knew him as well. Is that he's always trying to justify why he's doing the things that he does. Zeus, probably according to mythology, never tried to justify himself, and even in Norse mythology, Odin is constantly justifying. So this game is just on the money. I think that
it's a long way to get to that point that everybody knew.
Yes, Odin. Odin is constantly like in this game, like trying to say, well, but I'm doing this because I need to understand myself. It's like, yeah, but you're killing a lot of people to understand yourself, which is a very, very exaggerated metaphor for real life.
Yeah, like you said, existential crisis.
Existential crisis,
and I think they did a great job of kind of portraying that, and you did almost have a small sliver of empathy for Odin. You kind of, yeah, you could understand, at least that, like I said, that the part with Atreus you could kind of understand. It's just his past deeds are really what kind of made him a douchebag. So to see him go wasn't all that hard, but again, spoilers for the third time, and at this point, if you're still listening, if you are listening, well, thank you.
Who gives a
spoilers?
Fuck at this point?
I love that Kratos decimates the Greek pantheon, even in like the second and third game. The first game, not so much, but the second and third game, he really goes to town with like a lot of Greek heroes and kills them all. But these games, I mean, if you really want to compare the god count of death, it's like you got Baldur, you got Magni and Modi, Thor, Heimdall, and who else? Was there anybody else?
Freya
that he kills?
Oh, he sorry. I thought you were saying the ones that he kills.
Like who does Kratos kill in these two games?
Just those ones that you've listed, I think.
Those are 5. Because he doesn't even kill Odin. They give Odin almost a redeeming idea of like, we're gonna put him in a little soul stone, and then Sindri in the most anticlimactic of endings. Yeah, I'm sorry. I liked what they did up until that point. It was up until that point I felt for Sindri, but when he did that, and that was the ending of the game, where Sindri grabs Odin's soul and is just like,
yeah,
and then that's the end of it. Like I was like, wow.
I think that is.
You're not allowed to have thoughts. You're allowed to have opinions.
Well, there's no. I'm pondering that Sindri. That Sindri is being set up for. You know how Freya ended last game with like, "I'm gonna kill you." I think they're setting up Sindri for a similar thing in the third game of like, he's going to be on your tail. It's probably going to go longer, but I don't think that we're going to end up killing Sindri. I think that he's definitely going to be like after us for a while. Maybe not trying to actively kill us, but just like undermine us.
Now, Santa Monica has said that this is the end of the Norse mythology tale.
That doesn't mean that characters won't bleed over from mythology.
No, but do you believe that Sindri is going to follow Kratos and or Atreus to like Egyptian mythology or Aztec mythology or some other
Sindri can teleport at will? Yes, I do think that he is going to follow them into Egyptian shinobi.
And do you think he has enough hatred in his heart to fight those two?
No. I do think that he has enough hatred in his heart to be petty as fuck.
Yes.
So I think that what he is willing to do is, now that he has nothing to really live for, he is willing to not put himself in harm's way necessarily for fighting, but for... Let me put it this way. My grandfather in World War II was an engineer in Poland. And one of the things that he did was he determined where on bridges they could place explosives so that when a German army was passing over, they could hit those explosives and the entire bridge would explode or would crumble, leaving the army
so
fall,
he was
and
like
also not be able to cross.
Sabotage engineer.
Saboteur, yes. That's kind of what I'm thinking here.
But that's ultimately going to lead to if you follow that track, it's going to have to lead to some sort of ultimate conflict between Sindri with Atreus and or Kratos. Like, then they're going to have to face each other at some point.
Or Kratos is going to tell Sindri, like, if you don't stop doing this, I'm going to have to kill you. And Sindri will, you know...
and you don't think that'll be anticlimactic? I don't know. I feel I want to circle back. I really feel like the whole Sindri storyline.
I can promise you.
Say again?
There will be something that happens that will not be anticlimactic. I can promise you that. I think that they're going to deal with the Sindri storyline in a very, very like epic way, but I do not think that it's necessarily going to be fighting. I think it could just be this is a very like cinematic story. I bet it could just be a very, very interesting cutscene.
I don't like that. I'm sorry. I don't think that's a great way to do it, because it just, and I even the game itself is like, well, Sindri kills Odin, and then the game continues, and you're given the option to keep exploring, but the credits don't truly roll until you go to Brock's funeral, where Sindri is just like, fuck you, and walks away during it. Like, they left that so much open. The ending of this game was honestly my biggest beef, where it just doesn't feel like anything happened the way it should. Thor dying, Thor dying not by Kratos' hands, for one. Odin basically being crushed, like being crushed into a little marble. And then, Sindri rebuking Kratos and Thor at Brock's funeral, and it leaves so much more open to interpretation. It leaves so much more of like,
I love that.
they've said this is the end of that series, but there's so much more like hanging out there, and like, and then there's and for a person who's, I don't want to say studied Norse mythology, but like kind of knows a few of the stories, it just feels like there's so much more opportunity in there, and it's like they didn't seize those opportunities. So you're just like, what was going through the writer's head? And I honestly would not be surprised if we got a DLC to this game with more story to it or something, because it felt so, I don't want to say unfinished, but like unresolved.
I could see them doing I don't want to call them spin-off games, but I can like maybe like non-mainline games that are like Atreus based with his combat.
I think the next
system.
game is going to be Atreus based, though. I 100% agree that we're going to get a game in like 10 years, and it's going to be Atreus based. It's going to be another quote unquote reboot, or but it's God of War. It might not be 10 years. I take that back, but like it's going to be what was it? How long was between the two games? 4 years, 4 or 5 years. I could see another one like about 5 years where we get another God of War, and it's Atreus, and he's, like I said, he's in like Egyptian or Japanese or Aztec. He's in another mythology, and we get more story to it. But the way they left this game, it felt like there's more to say within this world, this pantheon. There's more to be said.
That's true. I agree with that. I did I did kind of, I was surprised, I'd say, when we got to the part where all of a sudden we were opening up or creating Ragnarok using the Chaos Blades. I was like, oh, I felt like we were another 5 or 10 hours away from this part. So I was expecting a little bit more in terms of story. I liked what we got. I really enjoyed the story. I thought it was really good. But there was a bit to be desired, I'd say.
Okay. And what did you think of the story overall?
Overall,
you opened up, you opened up and you got Freya against you, and you got to rescue Tyr.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a whole,
and then you basically and then you're sent on quests to help the dwarves and locate what was the item that you need from the dwarves world. I can't remember this time, but you go to
Svartalheim because that's where they think Tyr is. So you go there for that reason.
And
then you go to Vanaheim to help Freya's brother, and then you're helping Freya close the magic that prevents her from traveling realms.
Right.
And then intermittently you're helping Odin as Atreus,
mm-hmm.
and he's traveling to he's got his own storyline going to Jotunheim with Angerboda, and then he's helping find the mask pieces and helping Odin and learning, giving context behind Thor and Thrud's storyline. What did you think of all that?
I loved that the first 2/3 of this game I loved. The last third of the game I liked.
And where was that shift approximately?
I think roughly when I realized that we were already starting Ragnarok.
Like you said previously mentioned, where you're just we're there already.
It's happening. Like I was not expecting it to happen so soon. Like it did not feel like, what was the thing that happened right before that? I can't even remember because it all of a sudden was just happening.
Brock's death, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was it. It was like, oh, Brock's death, and all of a sudden we're starting Ragnarok, and I was like, whoa, this feels like kind of a midway point, guys. um almost like I was like
Yeah.
get drop an Iron Spirit like the quarter point, kill Brock at the midpoint, have another like bunch of stuff that you're like getting prepared, you're getting over Brock's death, you're like kind of like lashing out, Sindri's lashing out, you're maybe trying to reel him in. Like do all that sort of stuff and then go and open up Ragnarok. Like if they just added a bit of content to that part of the game, the end of it would have been just as good. But it just all of a sudden kind of happened and I was like, oh, that's weird. Okay. In the excitement of playing it, I obviously didn't give a shit, but in hindsight I'm like, that's odd.
So, if I may express my own drunken thoughts here,
Of course.
as we've talked about previously, this game jumps between Atreus and Kratos, and it's fun. It's a unique idea. It was, not totally unexpected. Like when it happened, I'm like, oh, okay, this is new, but you know what? I'm not surprised.
Mm-hmm.
But did this game feel disjointed to you? Like, so the original game was, all right, we're going to set out to spread your mother's ashes. And that's what they try and do. And they just kind of hit roadblocks that prevent it from happening, and just, go, and it's roadblock to roadblock. And while you could argue that this game was like, oh, Ragnarok is, it's what we're working towards, and there's roadblock and roadblock, but it just felt very disjointed. It
started from we're trying not to do Ragnarok, and then we have to do Ragnarok, and so that happens. Like that was clear to me. It felt.
It felt like. I mean, you obviously knew that was where the game was going. I mean, shit, the name of the game is Ragnarok.
There were some chapters where I did feel kind of like, wait, what's the mission again? But overall, it was like me. I can't remember what chapters they were. It was kind of like middle part, but like there were just some chapters here and there where I was like, wait, what are we doing again?
Yeah, it just, I don't know.
But
I loved this game.
I think that about every game.
I loved this game, and I loved Christopher Judge and Sonny Solgen as Atreus and Kratos. Or Kratos and Atreus, respectively. Like, they did a great job of the motion capture and the emotion and the story. But it just, I don't know. This game, I think, because they were jumping between characters and the goal, while yet it's defined at the end of the day, but the hesitation towards it just created a lot of disjointness in the story that just like, it felt very broken up. It felt like, okay, you're going to do this, and then we're going to do this little side thing, and then we're going to come back and we're going to do this. It just felt kind of scattered. It just felt like a lot of little things that added up to a big thing versus a progressive linear. It felt non-linear, even though the story is linear. Like, you can't play that story out any other way. But the original was linear feeling. This game felt non-linear.
What the biggest issue was. Now I'm realizing now. The studio.
He just took a big old bong hit. We got a high-minded minute ahead of us.
The studio was afraid that Sonny Solgen was going to grow up and not want to do acting anymore, and they were like, "Well, we need to keep him. We can't be sure."
Where
that
did you
he's
hear
gonna
this?
Be around. I'm just thinking about this. They're like
So you're speculating. This isn't fact.
This is pure speculation. That we were like, we need to hold on to him. We need to make sure that we at least get 2 games. We can't guarantee a third game because he's gonna grow up. He's gonna turn 18. He's gonna like maybe want to go off to college. Who knows what he's gonna want to do? He's a kid. He's sporadic. Kids do crazy things all the time. Who knows what he's gonna want to do? So let's just do 2 games. What they should have done is just bank on doing a third game. Ragnarok should have been the third game. The second game should have been like, battle for Thor's head or something. I don't know.
We know working your titling skills.
Yeah, I know. But
Thimblewinter.
Thimblewinter, that would be good. Yeah.
Thimblewinter. Say it with me now.
Thimblewinter.
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 Yeah. Good man. Okay, moving on.
I know because in Fire Emblem 7, which they've announced
Oh
for
God!
Switch now,
Here
finally,
we go.
the best
I'm gonna,
magic in the
if I'm
game
editing this
that
week,
is
I'm gonna
not
incorporate like a Pee Wee
epic.
Herman's Playhouse. Like he said, the magic word, the word of the day, Fire Emblem 7.
Fire Emblem 7, it has the magic Fimbulventer, which is the correct spelling of Fimbulwinter. And that's how I knew it. I was like, oh fuck yeah, that's what that is. Yeah. Anyway,
I'm gonna need more beer.
yes, you are. I'm gonna need more weed after this is done. Anyway, that's what I was thinking about. But if God of War 2 had been just called Fimbulwinter, and then God of War 3 was Ragnarok, and they had just fleshed it out, I could have seen the second game ending with like Kratos dying, and then the third game picking up with Atreus like a few years later, and he is. I could even see Atreus taking care of Ragnarok on his own, and then at like the midway point, he goes off in the search to get get Kratos back or something like that. Like that, I could have seen that happening.
I don't know. Knowing what I know about some of the things that Loki had to endure during Ragnarok and or Greek Norse mythology, like, do you know why the Norse or what the Norse believed earthquakes were?
No,
involving Loki and a poisonous snake.
I don't know that story. What is this one?
Let me educate you. Let me learn you something, son. So the Norse believe that earthquakes are caused by the screams of agony of Loki. And the reason Loki is in agony is because after some bullshit he did, because let's be honest, Loki did a lot of bullshit. And I'm pretty sure it's killing Balder. I could be wrong. I'm probably wrong, but long story short, I'm not wrong on this next part, is in repentance and their frustration with dealing with Loki's bullshit, the Norse pantheon tied up Loki in a cave. So he could not move a square inch. Mm-hmm. And they also tied a snake above his head that would constantly drip venom onto Loki's eyeball. I want you to picture that for a second, my friend.
I'm remembering this story now.
Yeah, picture that for a second, my high opinionated friend. He is.
His earthquakes are the screams from the bowels of the earth.
But only because his wife, which is Angerboda,
mm-hmm.
she feels bad, so she sits there and holds a cup in front of Loki's eyeball as long as she can to collect the venom. And then when she can't hold it no longer or the cup is full, she dumps it. But in those spare moments, while she's doing so, drips of the venom hit Loki's eye, and his screams and his pain and his anger are what cause earthquakes around the world.
Right. So the earthquakes are sporadic because it's how long she can hold on or how long the cup takes to fill.
Mm-hmm. Approximately so. I'm not saying that's 100% accurate.
This is why
that's the approximated.
This is why the Norse were so brilliant with their storytelling, and then the Greeks were like, and Poseidon was angry, and the tsunami came.
Fair. So
like,
I don't know. I'm thinking about like
for shit.
Poseidon was pissed. Move on.
Yeah, exactly. He was pissed off. Zeus was angry, so he fucked someone, and he fucked a bunch of people and made a bunch of his offspring. And then the Hades was angry about this, and so he killed the offspring. Like that's just a bunch of angry.
That's
people.
all Greek mythology is.
It's just a bunch of angry people, and it's
I want to see like Atreus go back to Sparta.
Ooh,
so
Atreus
if I have predictions on the, let's move on to predictions. diatribe more on Norse mythology, but I'm not. But let's talk about predictions for the next game, whenever it may be. Let's say 6-7 years down the line. Atreus goes back to Sparta to understand his roots. But instead of running into the Greek pantheon, which is, let's be honest, all fucking dead, he runs into the Roman pantheon.
Ooh. That would be interesting.
So just instead of Zeus, we have like Jupiter.
It's just across the sea.
It's a hop, skip, and a jump, and they could be encroaching. They could be, oh, well, the Greeks are gone. Fuck them. Let's take over.
Which is true. The Romans were, at that point, occupying the Greeks.
So, like, you got Jupiter and you got Mars and Pluto.
I think this could be very interesting. So we get the Roman pantheon encroaching on the Greek land, and Atreus is dealing with that, and Kratos comes back looking for Atreus, and we get their kind of divulging storylines, but more Atreus this time, kind of leading into an Atreus-focused series.
I want Atreus to reconcile with the ghost of Sparta.
And Kratos as well. I think Kratos has to be there for it as well.
He does. Well, maybe he does or doesn't.
Atreus has to like come to terms with it on his own, but but I think Kratos will be there for it. Like maybe not there to. He won't be there to experience it in the same way. Atreus will experience it in his own way, but Kratos will still be present. I think like when it happens.
Yeah, I haven't thought that much into it. I just think. I think putting Atreus, in a world where Kratos, whereas a lot of what Atreus's / Loki's story is him finding himself and understanding who Loki is. Parallel to that, those two games are about Kratos forgetting who he was. And trying to move beyond that personal, that person that he used to be, that God of War of killing Ares and Zeus and all the fuckers. So having a game that focuses on those two worlds meeting and contradicting and exploring that world, like, what happens when you have somebody who's trying to find themselves and somebody who's trying to forget themselves,
right?
Meet and really meet. Like obviously they're father and son, so like we've had a little bit of clash, and and that's one thing I love. I love the moments of Ragnarok that reference the old games. I was talking to a friend of mine earlier this week. I loved that Ragnarok, and even the first game too, by extension, would talk about the original games almost to a fair extent. Like there was a conversation, I don't know if you experienced it, between Kratos and Mimir about Deimos. Did you get to that part?
Yes.
I loved that because that is the entire plot of Ghost of Sparta on the PSP.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. So I loved when there was the crossover, because
they would talk one
of the things these two games did so fantastically was they were a great entry point in the sense that if you had never played an original God of War game, you'd still figure it out. You could still piece together, oh shit, this guy's got history of being a douchebag. And you could move on from that.
One of my favorite moments in the first game was when Mimir learned, and then again in the second, in Ragnarok, one of my favorite moments was when Freya learned, because Freya learning was so special, of like her actually realizing, oh man, this guy hurts just as much as I do, and he's done a lot of bad shit, and I've done a lot of bad shit, and it was just kind of like realizing a bunch of different stuff. I love those little moments of calling back to the original game, while in a way calling it to attention with everything that's going on with them right now.
Exactly. So if you were to take that and create a whole new game based on it, but still keeping it fresh by, like I said, you bring in like the Roman versions of the Greek gods and plays Atreus as he's working through the whole like, this is who my father was, this is who, but I'm trying to be better.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think there's something there that could be just interesting to explore instead of bringing him to a whole new realm of like, somehow Atreus ended up in Egypt. Just like somehow Kratos ended up in Norway, or
That's a very good point.
You know what I'm saying? Instead of, I mean, there's a comic book that explains how Kratos gets up there, but like, fuck it, who gives a shit about that? I'm talking about like in game. It's like, instead of bringing Atreus to just some random pantheon just to be that to be the villain of that pantheon, bring him back. And have him confront his father's past, but at the same time keep it fresh and new.
What if? Here's something for you. What if we get
Hit me, Slim.
What if we get two different mythologies next time? He goes back. The Roman pantheon is encroaching on the Greek pantheon, but what is right across the water and is clashing with the Romans.
Egyptian.
So what if we have two mythologies who are both at odds with each other because the countries are at odds, or maybe the countries are at odds because the pantheons are at odds?
Yeah, could be.
So
and that would be God of War. If they're at war, they need a God of War.
They would be God of War. So Kratos gets caught up, or Atreus gets caught up in the middle of it. And what if he ends up killing another god, and like even without Kratos,
he kills Mars.
That would be interesting
because Mars was the Roman god of war.
I know that. What if he kills Mars and becomes the new God of War?
Yeah.
Loki of the Norse mythology is now.
Or I'm gonna go way back here. I'm doing a deep pull, and I know we've talked about this in the past, but bear with me for the podcast. One of the original ideas from God of War 3. So God of War 3 sees Kratos die again, come back from Hades, eventually works with Hephaestus to find and open Pandora's box, because that contains like the hope of the world. It's not just like, from the first game, it's the power to defeat a god is what we believed. But they're like, no, that's the hope that's the hope of mankind, basically. So you find the Pandora's box, but then you fight Gaia and you fight Zeus again, and then you kill Athena, and you not kill her, but you open the box and you give hope back to mankind, which takes the power from the gods. It's a whole thing. A long story short, David Jaffe, who is one of the original creative directors on the God of War series back in the early thousands, has said that one of the original ideas for God of War 3 was to kill Zeus in the beginning of the game, have Kratos go explore Egyptian mythology, and play with timelines more. And at the end of the game, was he would meet up with two alternate timelines of himself. Like, he would go to the Egyptian mythology, Egyptian pantheon, and basically find another version of himself fighting those gods, and realize like, oh, this is happening around the world. And so he would team up with that Kratos, and then there was another one they would team up with, and it would make three of them. And those three Kratoses, however you want to call them,
people who were in the same boat as Kratos.
Yes, Kratosize.
They were not all Kratos. They were
iterations of Kratos in different mythologies.
So that means that they were just like different versions they were not necessarily like the exact copy of Kratos, you piece of shit. Oh, but say
Kratosai. It's so much fun.
Kratosai. No.
Long story short, the three versions of Kratos that they saw in the game would become the three wise men of Christianity.
Oh, interesting.
And the game would end with them delivering the gifts of frankincense, myrrh, and gold to the baby
three
Jesus.
Very violent men.
I mean, hopefully they're a little more pacifist at that point, but like the game would end with the birth of Christianity.
Okay.
I always thought, like, well, I'm happy they didn't go that route because 3 is just a fucking amazing, epic game. I always thought that was an interesting idea of ending the God of War series with the burst of Christianity.
Yeah.
So, like, what if it's like Atreus, Kratos, and an unnamed third character that we eventually get that become the three wise men?
Freya with a beard.
I don't think you're right on that front, but
no,
please
know,
continue, my high-opinionated friend.
I'm joking.
Maybe Mimir if they restore his body.
I could see that, honestly. I could see that. But no, what I think is they're definitely going to go into different mythologies and like. But the thing is, the God of War 2018 and Ragnarok are taking place in like AD. Like,
you think so?
It's confirmed they're taking place in like 500, 600 AD.
How's that confirmed? Maybe I missed something.
You can look it up. People have talked about it. Like the Santa Monica Studios has said that it takes place because the Norse mythology was from closer to the AD, like 500, 600, 700, 800, like Vikings.
Where the Greeks took place what, like 3000 BC?
Yeah, Greeks were like 3,000 to 3,002.
I do not believe I'm
BC.
correct on that.
Egyptian mythology is the oldest and longest lasting. So that would be kind of weird just them discovering it in like
Greek mythology 900 to 800 BC approximate. So and yeah, Egyptian probably a little bit different, but
well, Egypt has been around for like 10,000 years, 8,000 years. And so their mythology has been around for so fucking long. It lasted so long. It was still in practice until like 1200, 900.
Norse mythology was could be, I mean, it's 790 C, whatever this is. 12th century, so is when it finally got away. So yeah, I mean, very different
exactly
periods in time, but
the Roman mythology was definitely around at this point, and so was the not shinobi, the Japanese one.
Yeah,
these were all viable mythologies for them to jump into. And
the way Atreus held his bow could almost be like a katana.
Could be.
Think about that combat.
Could be.
Like how he was like.
That's very true. That's very true. He did hold it in the posture of like a samurai in full armor. That's a thing to think about. But in the meantime, I think that we're encroaching on an hour and a half, and we should probably let our humble 4 listener. Yeah, you're right. I'm getting way ahead of myself. Our humble listener should really get going. So,
hi, Mom.
But I think that we've said a lot of good things. I think that we've laid a lot of groundwork, and if they listen to this, they might get some good ideas. And if they weren't heading in that direction, then I hope that they reconsider, because I like the idea of Roman mythology clashing with Egyptian mythology. I think that would be a really cool concept. I think that would be very, very, very cool concept, and they would really live up to the name of God of War. So Anyway, I think we end the discussion there. Corey, you work hard, but you also like to do some art. Where can we find that?
Oh,
Social thing.
I haven't posted a lot lately. I need to get better on that.
Yeah.
I need to make, ideally, I'm going to talk to my work and see what kind of stuff I can start posting from my work, because I think I told you I am now the official marketing videographer for Delcore. That is my official title. So I need to see what videos I can start posting. I know I finished one recently that will be able to show publicly, but the machine is I don't know if I can say.
All right.
It's pretty cool though. It's a new machine, and it's very it's got some patents pending, which is cool. I'm going to soon have a new video, probably sometime in like May. I mean, I have videos obviously in between that, a lot of shit that I probably could share. But I have a new video in probably like May, hopefully, that I'll be able to share. That like we got all the patents for, which is totally dope.
Very nice.
A lot of cool shit happening at Delcore. So
yeah.
And I'm doing a lot of cool videography stuff. I'm updating and really doing my best to work within the marketing team to up those videos and up my portfolio and make something truly outstanding. So you can hopefully keep an ey on that on most of the social medias, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can follow me at RoxyBoy, ROKESYBOY. Keep an eye out too. I am directing the first episode of a web series this summer as well. So that's going to be getting underway soon. So expect some behind the scenes photos on that and updates for the Wildlife Society.
Very nice.
Thank you. What about you, G-Man?
Well, I'm a writer. You can find my short stories, my shorter stories, my scenes from plays, poetry, and some photographs. All on my website, mad-musings.com. Again, that's mad-musings.com. I haven't updated it in a while, but I'm about to go.
No, you have not.
I'm about to get a week off from class, little just midway week off, and so that'll be nice. I'm going to take my laptop and make sure to update it and put some new things up there and keep you posted on that, you crazy animals.
Crazy animal. Yeah, let's be honest here.
Fair enough, you crazy animal. Anyway.
Hi, Morgan.
Anyway, you can get my writings at mad-musings.com, and yeah, follow me at outrageous_creation on Instagram. That's the only.
You don't share really shit on that. Don't even advertise that.
It's the only thing that I actually engage with. So, whatever.
You don't engage with that either. Engaging means you would actively participate in the conversation on Instagram.
As in I go on there and I look at stuff and I like stuff. That's what I mean by I engage with it.
Yeah, that's what they all say.
Fair enough. Well, anyway, that's it for us this week. I've been your high opinionated piece of shit, Graham Stebniewski.
Wonderful self-confidence there, bud.
Thank you.
He has been your high opinionated host of the highly intellectual and more H words that I can't think of at this point, but he's been awesome. So give him a round of applause.
You put me down, and then when I put myself down, you're like, whoa, what are you doing putting yourself down?
Yeah, exactly. I'm allowed to put you down, but you can't put yourself down.
You got it. Okay.
No, it's not. It's not wrong. Nope, I don't.
All right, whatever.
Self-confidence, my friend. I am giving you armor. I am teaching you armor.
Sure.
So that when so that when the critics give you shit, you'll be like, fuck those guys. I'm used to this bullshit. I've dealt with Corey Rokes, man. That guy's an asshole.
Yeah. All I'm hearing is you're a dick.
Asshole. Thank you.
Yep.
But
that's it from us.
Because I am
folks.
an asshole, but I'm your asshole.
Get out of here. You don't need to hear the rest of this. This is just shut it off. Turn it off. You don't need to be here anymore. Go away.
Don't tell Morgan what to do.
I'm telling our 3 audience members.
All right. Don't tell Morgan, your mom, and my mom what to do. What was that?
Fair enough. What?
I just heard like a...
It's my phone buzzing below the microphone because I didn't think it would go off.
Well, that it's just shocking that it sounds like your phone and not like the marital aid you keep in your desk. But that's a whole other conversation.
Wow, you would for that one, didn't you?
Wow, there you go.
You know I have problems in my multiple marriages.
That's a whole other can of worms, my friend. Graham, thank you so much. Don't get discouraged. We're gonna make you a famous writer someday, Ernest Hemingway. I'll make fun of you, but don't make fun of yourself.
All right.
Be
Let's
self-confident.
just end this podcast now and get it over with. I have places to be and things to do and food to eat, my dude. Like you're just dragging this out. You always just drag this out, and I just want it to be over.
Yeah, well,
Why do
you kind of sound like Hannah. Hey-o.
Oh, I bet she does. I bet she does
too. God, I love that woman. I am your high. I'm not high. You're drunk.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
I'm drunk. That's how you can tell.
There you go.
All right. Cue the music. I've been Corey Rokes, your drunken dastardly douchebag.
And I'm Graham. See ya, folks.
Cheers.